Okay, it's top of the hour, so we're going to kick off this webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us live, and if you are watching a recorded version of this as well, thank you for taking some time out of your day to watch this presentation. My name is Paul Towers. I am the founder and head of sales at Playwise HQ. I also bring more than 15 years experience in B2B sales and sales management to the table. Today's conversation centers around competition in competitive deals and the reluctance of sales teams and AEs to acknowledge and admit upfront that competitors are going to be present in the opportunities you're working on. And if there's a reluctance to acknowledge that, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So how can we approach opportunities through a different lens, recognizing that competitors are going to be present, and then flipping the script so that instead of that being a negative situation, it's actually a positive and allows us to take control and drive the sale forward. So I'm sure whether you're an AE or a sales manager, you've either said or heard something to the effect of, this opportunity was great until they mentioned competitor XYZ. And this situation arises even if you feel that your discovery was strong, even if you did a great demo, even if you're confident in your pricing. There can always be that moment in time where someone on the buying team in your prospect's company says, hey, we're looking at someone else. And you can almost feel the momentum evaporate during this moment. It may be very direct in that they say, hey, we are actively considering competitor XYZ. Or it may just transpire that instead of getting back to you quickly, they're taking longer. The responses are delayed. And the reason why that's happening is because they're comparing your solution and proposal to other competing solutions. They need to buy time. They don't want to get back to you quickly. So you can see this pattern emerge, and it's very easy to spot, especially as you get more reps under your belt if you're new to sales. But you have that strong early momentum. You've engaged with the prospect. They've got a clear pain point. They've got a clear desire to implement a solution to fix that. They may even mention exactly who's going to sign off, what the budget is, when they want to purchase by. These are all very strong positive signals. But as you progress, you do your demo, you put together your proposal, things look really great. And then all of a sudden a competitor is mentioned. And if you don't preempt this, you can often find out about that competitor quite late in the sales cycle. And if you haven't thought about it in this proactive manner, essentially what you've done is you've put your best foot forward, a competitor's been mentioned, and now you don't have an opportunity to counter that competitor's strengths in your initial proposal. It's almost like now you're coming back after the fact and trying to emphasize new points that if you just had that conversation up front and asked about the competitive situation, asked about what other solutions they may be considering, you could have weaved that narrative in to your presentation, into your pitch, into your demos, and been in a much stronger position from the very start. So when this happens, the results are that the opportunity stalls and doubt starts to creep in, because if the other competitor has been proactive, they already know about you. They already know about your situation. They already know that you're in there presenting and doing a demo. They've probably even gone as far as ask, what do we have to do compared to your solution to put ourselves in a better position? So they're operating from a position of strength, and you and your team are operating from a position of weakness. Ultimately, a large number of these deals end up lost, but at the very minimum, the momentum has been lost, and that can delay sales cycles, increase patterns of discounting, which we'll get into in a minute. From a sales rep's perspective, you've invested a lot of time in this, and that time can never be taken back. So in today's world, especially where it's very competitive, every deal that you have is like gold. You really need to treat it well. You need to nurture it. And if there is a strong opportunity where someone is going to actively buy a solution and is not just doing a market scan, they're the opportunities where you really can't afford for this to go wrong. So when this situation arises, leaders typically look to apportion blame somewhere, right? Obviously, the rep is the number one focus. Why didn't you know that this competitor was going to be in this opportunity? Do we need additional training? Do we need another enablement session, whether it's on discovery methodology or understanding our competitors? Do we need better battle cards? Do marketing need to refresh the content? Do we need new tools? Do we need call recording software so that I can, as a leader, review calls, see how the questions were asked, see the responses, see how my AEs counteracted any of the objections that were raised by the prospect? But if you've made the right hire and your sales team have been good at selling in the past, your reps didn't suddenly become bad at selling. Understanding that your rep in this situation hasn't lost confidence because they lack skill, they've lost confidence because certainty has disappeared in this critical competitive moment is the key takeaway. So breaking that down a little bit further, if you think about it, sales teams thrive on clarity and certainty. If a rep is unsure about a true competitor, whether it's their pricing, capabilities, or current positioning, they default to caution. Sometimes that can mean, I'm not going to mention a competitor. I'm not going to proactively ask about a competitor because I don't know enough about that competitor myself. I don't know if I ask this question whether or not the competitor has a better response to it than we do. And really, when that certainty around the competitive offering disappears, reps do want to, typically see one of four things come up. So that prospect asks a question like, hey, we've seen that competitor XYZ can do this. Can your solution also do it? If the rep doesn't know, they typically stall. They promise a follow-up instead of answering directly. When you stall or defer to later, you're telling the prospect that you aren't sure whether or not your product can deliver on the outcome they need, especially if this is a critical feature. Now, your product might be able to do it, but because you have to defer, the prospect knows it's not a key feature, because if it was a key feature or capability of the platform, you as an AE should know. Stalling and deferring, obviously closely related, but similar thing. Hey, I need to defer to someone else who understands this problem better than I do. So if you're trying to use your AEs as experts and they have to defer to someone else internally, unless it's a very technical question that requires that depth of knowledge, again, it raises the seed of doubt. I thought this product or solution was going to solve our problem. How can you not understand this problem that we have as a prospect and clearly articulate whether or not your solution can solve it? The other thing that often comes up as well is we're in a very competitive situation. I need to discount more than I was going to discount before because your AE doesn't have certainty that the capabilities and ROI potential of your platform can stand up like for like compared to the other solution. If you believe that your solution is better, then why would you discount? If you know your solution can deliver on everything that the prospect needs, there's no need to discount. If you believe your solution can offer a better ROI, has better capabilities, and is superior to the competitor's solution, given the context of what your buyer's after, the size of their company, the industry they work in, etc., there's no need to discount. And the fourth, and perhaps the worst, is to retreat and completely avoid the competitive conversation entirely. In a discovery call, in a demo, in a follow-up call, you don't want to mention competitors at all. The AE doesn't want to ask, are you considering this solution? Or the AE doesn't want to say, when a customer like you is looking at our solution, we understand that they typically look at other solutions like X and Y. Are you also considering them? A lot of AEs shy away from that conversation or that question. But really, that's a source of great intel. And if you can ask that, you're going to be in a much better position to understand how likely this deal is to close and how strongly positioned you are for it. Retreating is probably, although it's number 4, one of the most common things that I see or have seen throughout my career. So what does this all actually mean? Because at the end of the day, unless there's an ROI, there's no need to fix it. But obviously there is an ROI. Typically you see longer sales cycles. And we recently did a study with some of our customers where teams who lacked clarity and lacked confidence in that competitor conversation estimated that their average deal duration was 23% longer. 18% of them were having to put in higher discounts or had seen the AEs use higher discounts. And they also saw a 31% lower win rate when competitors were mentioned, but not proactively asked about early on in the sales cycle. So it's that proactive nature that really can flip this script. So when you think about it, even if you win the deal, you spent 23% more time. How else could that AE's time be used? If you could close it earlier, they can go and focus on other deals. Every dollar counts. If we don't need a discount, why are we discounting more? If we are the strongest solution for this customer, given their problem, why are we discounting higher? And obviously win rate, it's self-explanatory. If we can win more deals, everyone's happy. And this isn't just a one-off thing. It's a compounding effect that happens time and time again. There's hesitation. The reps aren't sure. They delay follow-ups with their prospect. They don't want to ask the hard questions. They don't proactively ask, hey, I understand you're looking at competitor X. Have they shown anything that gives you a greater degree of confidence that they can achieve an outcome for you compared to what we've shown you? Or when most of our customers come to us, they're choosing us over platform A and B for these reasons. Does that also resonate with you, or are you looking at something else? Is there some other outcome that you're looking at? Concessions and discounts we've already talked about. These can be compounding effects. It's not just on the deal that you win initially. When that renewal comes up, if you've set the expectation with the prospect that you will discount, they're going to expect a discount on the renewal too. If they want to add additional seats or add new modules from your platform, they're going to expect a discount too. Uncertainty compounds not only in the rep, but in the team. So, hey, I'm not really sure how we position here. I'm not really sure what to do if this competitor is mentioned or how to counteract that. Unless the team's proactively helping build up everyone, that uncertainty can spread throughout the team. We're not really good at winning against competitor X. And then all of a sudden people want to avoid competitor X instead of asking the actual question of why are we not good at winning against competitor X? And is there something that we can control in the sales cycle, early on in discovery, early on in qualification, that can increase our chances of winning against competitor X? If you dive into the details, you might actually find that you beat competitor X if you ask certain questions early on and can better qualify those deals before you do a demo. You can do your demo with those constraints or those requirements in mind. And lost deals, again, compounds, because for every customer that you lose, you also lose the renewal potential. You also lose the expansion opportunities that come from them, and the potential to use them as case studies or testimonials to break into new markets. Losing one deal in one industry could result in many lost deals down the track. And I've seen this in my career at certain companies I've worked for when we were trying to break into new markets. Getting that third, fourth, or fifth customer within a given industry would have greatly accelerated our potential to go after the rest of the companies within that space. Losing that deal, at the very least, delayed our ability to be aggressive in that industry. Okay, so what's the root cause of all of this, and how do we actually get about fixing it? I think in my experience, it really boils down to competitive intelligence exists, but it doesn't function well for a lot of companies. You know, if you've worked in sales like I have long enough, you'll see a Slack message, or if you're on Microsoft Teams, a Microsoft Team message, whatever it is, or even someone asking in an in-person meeting, hey, where's the competitive intel on competitor A? And someone will be like, oh, look, I think it's in our intranet. And then someone else will go, no, you know, Bob, he created a slide deck a couple of months back. Go check there. And then someone else will say, no, actually, we had a Slack thread going on about that where people were sharing their feedback. And all of a sudden, you've got 3 different people telling an AE to go to 3 different places to find information. And when they get there, they find that it's 6 months, 9 months, 12 months out of date. Or worse yet, just completely contradicts one another. So then they don't know what to trust. And that breaking of trust removes the confidence, or eliminates the confidence that the AE has to ask those hard questions about the competitive situation, because they're not sure of the competitor and the competitive situation themselves. Why wouldn't AE ask a question about a competitor's functionality or what a prospect liked about a competitor's proposal if they themselves don't have trust or the ability to understand that competitor fully themselves? But what do high-performing teams do differently? High-performing teams actually welcome competition. They anticipate it, expect it, and want to see it. If you're in a deal where competition is involved, it means that the prospect and their team that are looking at a solution are serious about implementing a tool or service to fix a problem that they have. They're not going to be meeting with multiple vendors, going through multiple different proposals if they don't actually have a problem they want to solve. And because we can anticipate competition, then we can actually do something about it. So we can expect it early, which means we can ask better questions early on. We can say, hey, we sit in a space where we typically compete against A, B, and C. Are you actively looking at those? If they say no, great. But you can say, is there any reason why you're only looking at us? Maybe they're saying, hey, we were referred to your company by XYZ. Strong signal. But more often than not, they're going to say, yes, we are doing a market scan. And then at least you can operate from that position of knowledge. If you have a competitive intelligence practice that allows you to provide insight into the types of discovery and qualification questions that you can ask, your AEs are going to be in a much better position to understand the competitive threat and guide the conversation to extract information from your prospect that informs your demo, proposal, etc. But to do this as well, high-performing teams need their reps to trust the answers. They don't want 6-month-old intel. If a rep is going to ask a question about a platform, let's just say the prospect is considering a platform and that platform's recently implemented new capabilities, if your rep doesn't understand the capabilities of that platform or that they even have them, and then they ask a question if XYZ is important, and the prospect says yes, and the rep assumes that platform doesn't have it, they're not actually helping themselves. They're putting themselves at a disadvantage because the prospect is then going to say, well, hang on a minute, why doesn't this rep understand that this competing solution already does that, right? So reps need to stop guessing and stop relying on 6-month-old intel. They need up-to-date intelligence on your competitors, on their competitive offerings, and where their strengths and weaknesses actually lay. Not the marketing speak, not the spiel that's on that company's website, but the nuts and bolts of what's happening in the field. If a new tool has an AI capability, where are its strengths, where are its weaknesses? That rep can then ask a much more pointed question to uncover whether or not that is something they should press on in terms of generating an advantage for you and your solution, or if it is really something that is a true strength of that platform and they need to be aware of it. The third thing that strong performing teams do differently is they understand that intelligence needs to be instant. Reps don't have time to read a 101-page PDF about every single thing that a company can do. They certainly aren't interested in seeing the tweet that the CEO of a company made about their holiday in Aspen. And there are some competitive intelligence platforms that actually showcase that information. It is irrelevant. Sales reps need actionable insight on the competitor, where they're strong, where they're weak, the objections, the talk tracks, and how they can best position themselves. And they need to be able to find it quickly. Not digging through different Google Drive folders, not searching the intranet through 101 different links, not finding a document that's a PDF that was written 12 months ago or 18 months ago, not finding a document that's V1, V2, V3, and they don't know if it's the most current. You need to make sure that intelligence is instantly available. It needs to be quickly referenceable. An AE needs to go, hey, I've got a call in 10 or 15 minutes. Let me just brush up on this so I know what's new and relevant for this competitor. So when I ask questions, I've got belief and trust in the answers and the questions that I'm going to be asking. You also need to change behavior, and the strong performing teams do this. They proactively introduce competitive positioning to control the narrative, but they also operate in this mindset that collectively as a team, they're acquiring knowledge all the time. The AE who's on a call with a prospect who hears that they're also considering competitor X, but they didn't like their response on support, or they didn't like that their feature couldn't do XYZ, or they heard that currently that competitor is discounting heavily to get into a new market. This is all intelligence. It should be fed back into your system. If it's sent as a Slack message, tomorrow that message is irrelevant. People forget about it, right? So it needs to be central. It needs to be compounding behavior. So if we now reframe this and think about it as a revenue control problem, you can see that it's not an enablement problem per se. It's not even about battle card design, and it's not even really about the tools or technology. It's about whether your organization can give your AEs confidence and certainty when they enter those competitive conversations, right? Yes, systems and tools help, and Playwise HQ is one of those platforms that can certainly help with this. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, is the process that you're implementing giving your AEs certainty about the competitive offering, the competitive position, so that they can ask these questions with certainty and trust in the answers that they're going to expect, and also the counterpoints that they're going to put forward. So with that in mind, one change you can implement this quarter is, where does confidence break in your current process? It's the simplest place to start. It doesn't require a system or a major investment. Basically, you're asking your reps in this opportunity or in this sales process, where did you stop feeling sure? Where did you hesitate? And more often than not, you're going to find that a lot of AEs have a cursory understanding of a competitive offering. They generally know where they can win or lose, but they don't have the depth of knowledge or confidence to ask the hard questions. They don't want to ask, hey, you mentioned that you're also looking at competitor X. I understand that they've recently implemented ABC capability that they're claiming can achieve XYZ outcome. Did they demo that to you? Do you think that outcome would be of value to your organization? Did you have confidence that they could actually deliver on that outcome for your organization? Be honest, how many AEs in your team would actually ask that question? And if the answer is only none or very few, then you've got your answer. You understand that your AEs don't have confidence in their competitive understanding to ask those hard questions. And asking those hard questions, as we keep harping back to, is what can allow you to be in a much stronger position from early on in the deal, and therefore be in a position where you don't have to discount as strongly, where deals don't slip, and where you don't take twice as long to close it as you should. And why does this question unlock everything? Well, obviously you start to see patterns emerge. If you've got a team of 5, 10 AEs and you ask this to each of them, you will see a pattern emerge. You can identify the root cause. Maybe your rep's competitive understanding is very strong, but they're not really strong on asking the questions, or they're not confident to ask the questions. You need to understand where the root cause is in your process. You then identify where to invest the time and resources. Is it into understanding your competitors? Is it into making sure that intel is readily available? Or is it arming your AEs with the questions that they can ask and the confidence to ask those questions? Maybe your AEs are very strong, but it's your sales engineering team who lack the confidence to ask some of those hard questions when they're demoing your solution. You've got to rebuild that confidence. This can come from picking up one of those competitors where traditionally your win rate was quite low, and then in time going, hey, we've implemented these fixes. Next time that competitor comes up, or next time we have a competitive situation that we can ask about this competitor, let's do it. Let's track the improvement in win rate. Let's track the improvement in how much less we need to discount. And if we can increase our win rate against that competitor, then that's where confidence rebuilds. And as a side note, this is one area where a lot of teams really also failed to invest enough time. And that is looking at competitive win rate on a per competitor basis. A lot of companies track our average win rate, but break it down. How often do you win against a certain competitor? But not only that, how often do you win against a certain competitor in a given industry for a given solution or outcome that they're trying to achieve? Helps you rebuild confidence, helps you identify where you should be spending your time. These small improvements can result in massive impact, and kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the very beginning. You have that competitive situation where a rep is now more confident asking the hard questions in advance. They now shorten the sales cycle. They now decrease the amount that you had to discount. They now increase the win rate. So now we've got a new customer that we closed sooner, that we discounted less. 12 months later, the renewal comes up. We're not discounting. Oh, they also want a new feature. They need to add more seats. They need to add additional modules. We're not discounting again. Compounding effects. Now we've got 2 or 3 customers in this new industry that we were trying to go after. Now we can start taking the market and winning even more deals because we've got more case studies. So just think about the long-term advantage of a process like this. It is not, let's just fix it so we help an AE win one more deal. It's let's fix this process so that we can win many more deals in a shorter amount of time at a higher, ARR or MRR, depending on how you track it in your organization. So how do you build this system of certainty? At its core is current intelligence, which we've been talking about. Your reps need to trust the information. And if the information is updated quarterly, half yearly, annually, they're not going to be able to trust it because they know it's not relevant. If an AE looks at a competitor battle card or some competitive intel and it says it was last updated 6 months ago, why are they going to trust it? Especially in today's age of AI where things are moving very, very fast. It needs to be instantly accessible. maybe not necessarily that a rep's going to pull it up in a live call, but they're going to be pulling it up 5 minutes before the call. They don't have time to search through 101 different folders, try and remember the Slack thread, try and find a certain Slack channel where it was mentioned. They need to go, hang on a minute, I know that I want to ask you a question about this competitive offering. Let me just do a quick recap to see where we win, where we lose. Let me see what objections typically come up. Let me just do a quick recap so I remember the strengths and weaknesses of that solution. This is a shared ownership model. Sales obviously have a very strong role to play here, but so does your product team, so does your customer success team, so does dedicated CI teams if you are big enough to have a dedicated CI team. In fact, customer success can often be one of the strongest sources of competitive intelligence because they're hearing everything that happens after implementation. So your sales team are pitching, they're selling the dream, they're selling the vision to a customer. The customer implements a solution, and then it's over to customer success to manage that relationship moving forward. And they hear where things didn't quite land or where the customer got an even bigger benefit than they thought. You may have pitched them on 3 or 4 key value props. You might have thought that the 4th value prop you positioned wasn't the strongest. It may turn out that later on, that's where they're actually getting most of the value from. Taking that insight, updating the win-loss record with that, updating the battle card to say, hey, this feature is actually really landing well and is really driving a lot of value for our customers. That's critical insight that your CS team is getting. And it's an often overlooked part of creating this system of certainty and creating a competitive intelligence kind of framework to operate from. Then that feedback loop, which we've kind of been talking about there with CS, but not only from opportunities that you won, but also opportunities that you lose. Don't just default to, hey, we lost because of price. You know, it's such an easy cop-out to make. You know, unless your price is significantly greater than the other vendors, or there's a very, very hard limit on a budget, if your solution's 5%, 10% more, that's not why you lost the deal. Be honest with yourself. There's another underlying reason. And if you've developed strong champions in the sales cycle, you can pick up the phone and say, hey, look, you know, we've spent a lot of time putting together the proposal, putting together the demo. We customized it for you. Do you mind if we can just get 15 minutes either now or at a later date to kind of debrief and understand why you ultimately choose the competing solution? You're not coming at this from a competitive stance. You're not trying to change their mind. And it's very important that you get that across. You're coming at this from, hey, I hope you're able to respect the time that we put into learning about your business and trying to help your business with our solution. Would you at least be willing to spend a little bit of time with me so that I can now get better as a salesperson? You take that feedback, you share it with the team in a shared intelligence platform, you update your battle cards, and you make it something that creates that feedback loop where next time, you know, where you might have gone wrong in that deal. So to wrap up and bring it all to a head, deals aren't lost when competitors are better. They're lost when that certainty disappears. Because when the certainty disappears, the AEs aren't able to ask the hard questions they need to ask to understand the competitive situation, to understand what's really driving the decision-making process, and to then use that information to create a better competitive outcome for your organization. Teams that win consistently aren't louder or more aggressive. They don't discount harder. They don't trade away that you don't have this feature, so you need a discount by an extra 10%. They just start from a better place of certainty. They go in there with that certainty, and then with that, they can ask the questions that surface the competitors that are involved. They can then use that competitive information to ask questions to understand where the ROI is coming from in those competing solutions and where you need to articulate or change your messaging and accentuate your positives, or in some situations, just to call out the fact that, hey, you're looking at competitor X, you said that you're after outcome A, B, and C. Their platform currently is very strong at that. Is there any reason why you wouldn't choose that platform? They might then surface something that you can use, or say, to be honest, no, they're the front runner. At least then you know where you're fighting from, and you can make an informed decision about, do we continue to invest time or effort here, or what can we do to kind of circuit break this situation? So we all know that if you've got AEs and you've hired them a long time ago, you should still trust them. If they've sold before, they can sell again. You just need to give them the certainty to compete well. So as we wrap up this webinar, the real big takeaway to start with is go and ask your team where the confidence breaks. Ask them about the top 3 to 5 competitors they see. Ask them about how confident they are to have a conversation about those competitors. My gut tells me that typically if you've got kind of 5 main competitors, your AEs are going to be really confident having a 30-minute conversation on 1 or 2 of them. They're going to be okay to hold a 5 to 10-minute conversation on another 1 or 2, but there's still going to be another 1 or 2 sitting there that they really hope don't get mentioned. And that's where you're leaving money on the table. Then take the output of these conversations, feed it into a system that energizes your sales team to use competitive questions and competitive positioning as an advantage, not as a weakness, so that you can hit your competitors head on and use it as a way of asking the questions that you need to ask so that you can position your solution in a better light. That is everything that we had planned to run through. I will open up questions for the live audience and we'll give you a few minutes to put in some questions. I hope this has been of value and look forward to seeing any questions that roll in. Okay, looks like someone's typing. How early should competitors be introduced in a conversation without creating risks? Great question. I think from your framing of the question, it's still coming from a point of view that if I mention a competitor, I'm going to increase the risk of this deal. I would reframe it and say, if I don't mention competitors, there's going to be more risk. So it's better to ask about the competitive situation earlier in the conversation, even perhaps on the first call, so you can understand the lay of the land and start to position yourself as someone who is confident in saying, we know that you're going to look at other competitors, but we feel that our product service solution is better because we understand the competitive landscape very well, and we're happy to put up our solution against any other solution any day of the week. So yeah, just reframe that. Instead of thinking about mentioning competitors as being risky, it's risky not to mention them. Another question is this more of an enablement problem or a sales leadership problem? Great question. There is an element of sales enablement involved. Typically, things like competitive intelligence platforms, creating battle cards are either owned by sales enablement, product management, or competitive intelligence teams. So sales enablement can certainly be involved. I'm trying to shy away or trying to position that it isn't solely a sales enablement problem, because just because you have sales enablement who go and say, hey, we've got a battle card, that isn't the solution to your problem. Your solution to the problem is that your reps don't have certainty in the battle card or in the competitive intelligence or in the win-loss analysis. So instead of thinking of this as a siloed problem in sales enablement, in leadership, in product management, think of it more as a system that you need to get working together so that you can build up that confidence and arm your team with everything that they need to ask the questions. And part of that is going to involve sales enablement, saying to them, look, we need to work at a higher standard. We can't have battle cards that are 6 months out of date. We just can't. How do we create a system, or how do we implement a solution where our AEs can contribute insight that they hear so that our battle cards are updated in real time? How do we take the win-loss analysis that we do over here and make sure that we get those patterns and also put that into the battle card? How do we make sure that when the rep opens the battle card to see the competitive offering and the strengths and weaknesses of a competitive solution, that the information isn't 6 months out of date? That's the system part. Sales enablement have a role there. Sales leadership, though, also have a role because it's a change of behavior in terms of kind of going back to the previous question, educating your AEs and giving them confidence that we need to ask about competitors early in the piece, because we don't want to avoid it. We want to understand competitors, because if we understand competitors, we can ask the right questions and we can win more effectively. That's the sales leadership piece. It's kind of a holistic system, I guess, is the ultimate answer there. All right, we got another question. Competitive intelligence can often be a burden. It requires large teams. Okay, so basically this boils down to how do you create a competitive intelligence process without it becoming a massive operational burden on the teams? So it seems like, sorry, just reading the rest of this message. All right, this person is basically saying that in previous companies they've worked at, a lot of these programs start with the best intentions, but updating them on a regular basis becomes a burden, and because of that, then it leads to the problem of outdated intel. Great question, very common. We see it all the time. First of all, I think if you start with a point of view that there needs to be an owner responsible for updating the core information, right? What are the products and services offered by our competitors? What are the strengths and weaknesses, etc.? That's part of the process. With Playwise HQ, you can get started with AI. So even those kind of small competitors that everyone says they don't have time to create, you can plug in their name, their products, or let AI go and find their core products, and we'll create competitive battle cards for you in just a couple of minutes. And that's a great starting point. But then if you build into it this kind of sense of ownership in the AEs as well, and they're actively contributing insights back to the battle card or back to the competitive intelligence platform, then by default, it is going to become auto-updating. That AE who's on a call, who hears that the competitor has just dropped their price because they're trying to expand into a new industry, boom, straight into the competitive intelligence platform. The next AE logs in, the battle card was updated yesterday by their colleague, right? So there's that. Then there's also the cadence that you want to work to that makes sense for different types of information. So what I mean by this is the corporate overview, the corporate strategy. I mean, the competitor's not updating that every week, right? So something like that, that's like a quarterly review. Take a few minutes, look at it, and move on. Things like, do they have a new product? That can be something that you look at every month or every fortnight. Have they added a new product? Yes, we need to add a new product description and strengths and weaknesses. Win-loss records, that's another one where with the right process, it becomes self-updating because the AEs are contributing the win-loss analysis. And then, yes, the overall owner of the battle card might look at that win-loss analysis, identify patterns, and update some of the other content. But if you shift the mindset from this is kind of something that is largely static to something that is constantly evolving, then it just becomes this auto-evolving, auto-updating process. Everyone is actively contributing, even if there's an overarching moderator or owner of the platform. So I would do that. And then I would also say that, you don't want to start massive, right? With AI, especially in Playwise HQ, it's very easy to create competitive battle cards for a lot of competitors very quickly. They're personalized to your business. They're not generic, right? We understand your company, your products, your services, and then generate the battle cards based off of that. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So, day one, don't create 50 battle cards for 50 competitors. Start small. Okay, if we cover our top 6 competitors, do we have the resource headcount to do a weekly review to see if there's any comments by salespeople that need to be moderated? Any win-loss records that we could extract insights from and add to the battle card? Every fortnight, can we do a scan of our competitors, see if there's any kind of major announcements from them, funding announcements, new product announcements that need updating? Every month, can we do a sense check review? Every quarter, can we look at the corporate strategy of each of our competitors and see if there's any updates that are required? And with that process, that's not a huge amount of time. If you build it into that person who has ownership, their schedule, it's completely manageable. From there, you can go, okay, well, look, we cover our top 5, top 10 competitors. Now let's hear what are tier 2, tier 3 competitors that our AEs are coming up against. Let's go and create battle cards for them. We can do it quickly and maybe put them on a different update cadence. They're still updated, but you don't have to look at them weekly. That's how I would think about it. All right. I'm just checking. It doesn't look like there has been any more questions. So we're going to wrap the webinar here. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining today's call. I really appreciate it. Same if you're watching the recording. My name again, Paul Towers, founder and head of sales at Playwise HQ. If you are looking for a competitive intelligence platform that allows you to create competitive battle cards very easily, especially getting started with our AI battle card creation process, while still having the ability to manually create and curate the battle cards and combine things like the win-loss analysis and the field-sourced competitive insights that I've been talking about, then please do go and check out playwisehq.com. You can scroll down to book a demo if you'd like us to do a personalized demo, or better yet, we've got a completely free tier so you can sign up straight away and get started and see how it could work for your team. Thank you once again, and appreciate everyone who's joined us